Welcome back to A Little Higher, where we are back with Dr. Annabelle Manalo Morgan to continue our conversation about the plant medicine that saved her son's life, cannabis. We're picking up where we left off last week and learning about how Dr. Annabelle came across the endocannabinoid system and how it functions.
The big ultimate mission and picture is, of course, to normalize not just cannabis, but compounds that are natural. Cannabis is obviously my favorite.
Right.
But there's the mushrooms. There's even from coca plant, we have amazing both alkaloids and non-alkaloids that are very healing.
Wow.
I just love nature.
You just like to pick the plants that are like,
I just
love
love nature.
Around.
I'm the weird one that talks to the flowers, right? Like,
I love it.
I want to normalize that in traditional medicine.
Okay. So let's talk about the endocannabinoid system.
Let's talk about the endocannabinoid system.
I've introduced it in prior episodes of, a system in your body that's really trying to help you find balance and homeostasis.
Perfect.
And then I'm going to stop it there and let the professional take over.
That's perfect. I mean, obviously more complicated than that. And of course, I'm a cellular biologist. So what really puzzled me was, why don't I know about this system?
Let's answer that. Why don't we know about this system? Why isn't it taught to us? Like, I grew up, I learned that I have a digestive system and a nervous system.
Peripheral nervous system, you learn about
I don't
them
know
all.
if I even learned about that. Like,
okay, sorry.
But, I really just
Medical
got the
students,
basics.
you feel me. You feel me. There's nothing basic about our body, of course, and nothing simple. And of course, when I was looking for something from Macario and I started reading about cannabinoids.
Okay.
I was like, okay, what's the mechanism? Because that's where my mind goes. My mind is like, what are these receptors? And then what are their downstream effects? And what do they ultimately do? And I think that was the science that was kind of missing.
Right.
But it was there. It was there in pieces and parts.
Okay.
Like the chemistry on the cannabinoid system is actually pretty good.
Right.
But then as I got deeper into this endocannabinoid system, I was actually finding out about its history first, like, when Indian ancient times and what was thought about it from a spiritual level, like what it was thought about it doing. Right. And there's a science to spirituality. Just because we can't draw it on a board, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
It's the magic.
It is the magic.
Yep.
And science is magic. And so when I found it, I was like, okay, why haven't I discovered this? And I do think that because cannabis is illegal and because there's just such a negative view on what cannabis does, that maybe, and I don't know this for sure, the endocannabinoid system was left out.
What a shame.
And it was left out of the textbooks of medical students. It was maybe brushed by in my textbooks, right? Because cellular biology is like, the textbook, honestly, is the biggest thing I've ever seen.
Wow. Yeah.
So you think like cells are these simple things. The textbook is red and it is this big. Not joking. Ask Aaliyah. I just gave it to her and she was like, oh, thanks, Mom.
Oh, how fun.
This is your gift to me, Mom.
What a great Christmas.
But cellular biology is very complex when you start thinking about these mechanisms. So I just think it was not highlighted.
Okay.
So maybe it's not that it wasn't taught, but again, when you start going into your higher learning, post-undergraduate, a lot of professors pick and choose some of their lecture content based on what they're working on.
Right.
And because we weren't allowed to study cannabis, then maybe we weren't allowed to talk about the endocannabinoid system.
Right.
Because we're not really creating drugs that highlight or contribute to the endocannabinoid system. Maybe that's why we're not teaching about it, but it's wrong.
It's wrong.
And that needs to change.
Like
and it's changing.
Crazy how much politics lay into science.
Politics lays into everything in life.
As I'm learning,
Politics creates distractions so that other things can happen. And that's not our focus. That's not for us to focus on. What we can focus on is what we know and what we can contribute to. And the endocannabinoid system is real.
Cool.
It's been real for as long as people have been real.
Yeah.
And it does focus on homeostasis. It does focus on balance. And you're completely right. That's the easiest way to put it. I mean, shoot, give me something that's going to balance me.
Right.
Of course I want it.
Yeah.
How it works is at the cellular level.
Okay.
So it is a connectivity of how our cells communicate and how our cells respond. Cells respond all over the body. Cells communicate all over the body. I think we get really distracted by the way medicine has been done, that if you have an issue in your stomach, you need to see a gut doctor, and only the gut doctor will know the answer to that.
Right.
But there is a possibility that cellularly, that issue came from the lungs.
And it's just signaling to the gut, tell my body
and
I
that's
hurt.
where the symptoms, so we
Right.
focus on the symptoms. But the truth is, if we focus on a system like the endocannabinoid system, which is the root of that cellular signaling,
Right.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the receptors that sit on these cells
Okay.
and allow, based on endocannabinoids that we already have,
Right.
and cannabinoids that are given to us through foods, not just through cannabis.
Right.
Right?
Breast milk.
From the outside, that mimic these endocannabinoids, that can create this response and this signaling. So we like the CB1 receptors because that focuses more on the brain.
Okay.
And that focuses more on neuronal signaling. And so that's where you get the psychoactivity.
Okay.
But then CB2 is so important because that's mostly immune system receptors. So any cells that respond in that way, you wake up that endocannabinoid system to focus on the immune system. So because there's so many endocannabinoids, and it's controversial how many,
Right.
I think there's more than we know. There
It's
has
like-
to be more than we know.
We can never know all of them.
We
right?
can't
That's
know.
the whole thing about science.
Do you
We'll never
know
all
how
of
small
them.
a cell is?
Yeah.
Like if a cell is, I don't even know the 0.000.
Micron.
No,
Oh.
it's smaller than a micron.
Smaller than a micron. Okay.
But if a cell is that small, then how small do you think this receptor system and this network, like literally think about electricity, and
Okay.
that's how you can think about the endocannabinoid system. It is intentional electricity that is allowing our body to have homeostasis, which is what we want.
so profound. And everyone
it's
needs
so
it.
profound because, quite honestly, by the time you have a symptom, so much damage has already been done.
Right.
So if you are just being preventative
Mm-hmm.
and taking a Canvas
Oh,
supply
plug it.
gummy
Oh, I like it. She's plugging the gummies.
as a preventative measure,
Right.
as a just a daily supplement, you're
Mhm.
focused on the endocannabinoid system, you could be curing something
Right.
that
Or
wants to, or preventing something,
Right.
right? Like what I think a lot of people don't realize in my time in cardio oncology,
Mm-hmm.
when we were thinking about and looking at every cancer cell type, we need to understand we all have cancer.
Right.
We all have cancer cells. It is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
It is the inflammation we give our body that blocks a lot of that signaling.
Ooh, that's scary.
And it's
Yeah.
what we do that allows for something like cancer to multiply and
To
create
proliferate.
more cancer cells.
Wow.
Right? And to travel.
Yeah.
Cells travel. They don't just travel through their connections, they travel and they move around.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the endocannabinoid system is very undervalued. I do think we are now starting to talk about it more
Mm-hmm.
as a scientific community and as a medical community, as a pharmacy
Yeah.
community. Things like this take time. And, I just want to be one of the carriers of the endocannabinoid system flag.
I love it. You're the steward of the
That's
of the
all.
system.
Put a stamp on my head.
What do you okay, two questions for you there. What do you think timeline wise we're looking at when we're like where you'll start going into a doctor's office and they'll be like, hey, like you need to take your magnesium and your vitamin D, you need to take your cannabidiol or another one as part of your daily supplement regimen. Do you think that that's like way far out? How far?
I think it's different for different places. Just the
Okay.
way, my dad was sick recently, and even though I went through this tragedy with Macario, I had no problem with his care.
Right.
It's not that the doctors aren't good. It's not that they don't care from place to place. There's just different systems put in
Right.
place.
Right.
So at a Vanderbilt, at a Mayo, it's super integrative.
Okay.
Like with a case like my dad, who unfortunately had a stroke and he's okay now. But I saw the integrative medicine doctor. I saw the stroke specialist. I saw the head of neurology come together.
Right.
And then he has AFib. So not to put your business out there, Dad, but you've got a lot going on. And when you have a lot going on, you shouldn't see these doctors, these specialists separately.
Right.
They should be talking to each other.
They need to be on a team.
They need to be a team. And I don't think that happens everywhere.
Right.
So I think in different places, based on acceptance, based on who's in charge,
right,
to be honest, and what drugs are FDA approved. So the more we get some, traction as far as more Epidiolex and just more drugs that focus on the endocannabinoid system, and that's known, that that's the targeted mechanism, then I think we'll get more relaxed and we get a little more comfortable as a community and as doctors saying, hey, I know you're on all these drugs, but a lot of it has to do with drug interactions.
Yep.
So you can't blame the doctor, right? Because there's so many factors that go into good cannabinoids.
Right.
Good cannabinoid formulas, first of all, have to have great quality. Like, where'd you make that from? How did you make it? How pure is it? Is it safe? What else is in it, right? So that's going to define a good cannabinoid product. Another good thing is, where are you getting this tested?
Yeah.
Right?
Labs.
Where are you getting these labs? Like, quality is so important. But then from a medicinal standpoint, if somebody is on all this blood pressure medicine, or if somebody has a neurological issue and they're on all these seizure medications, say,
right,
then how do I know if they're allowed to take a CBD?
Right. How do they know?
So if we don't do the science, the doctor doesn't know. And so if the doctor doesn't know the answer to that, they shouldn't feel comfortable saying, hey, take vitamin B complex with that. And then, what I enjoyed, and again, I'll talk about my dad's journey, what I enjoyed that I didn't see with Macario's journey was that with his medication, not only did they say, hey, throw a vitamin B in there or throw a vitamin thiamine in there,
right,
they were actually quite detailed on how often, right, because of the medications he's on and because of the supplementation that he needs. So two things. We're honoring that vitamin space. We're honoring the need of the immune system to be at its best so he can accept this treatment and withstand the symptoms that happen with this drug.
Right.
So we're honoring that. But second thing, which is the biggest thing to me and always has been, is personalization.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking at the patient. He's not a number. He's a guy that has this history, which is different than anybody else's history in the world.
Right. It's not one size fits all.
Right. Yeah. And because of that, we are putting the puzzle pieces together for his best care. And that's what we need to see more of. And so at Vanderbilt, in this particular case, they got it right. At Mayo, I know they're very integrative like that as well. At UCLA, very integrative. Other places, maybe they don't have the infrastructure yet.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have the funding to do any science.
Right.
Maybe they don't have top dogs coming in and educating on the most current practices.
Right. So it's like they need to talk. So the doctors need to talk and the facilities need to talk.
And that's ultimately, like, I've had, Devin, I've had a hard time understanding, like, what am I supposed to do, right? I know for sure I'm not supposed to be like the next Dr. Sabi or treat people, or I'm not a formulator. I'm not a chemist.
Right.
Right? I can tell you a lot about this stuff, but I don't want to be in the lab all day.
Yeah.
Right? And I know for sure that I'm not anti-pharma.
Right.
I think being negative about anything in life is just the wrong way to go.
Bad energy.
It's just bad energy. I mean, surely, and this is not for sure, but surely people don't go out and just have bad intentions.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But the truth is that, okay, how do I keep myself useful with all the abilities that I have? Because, okay, one thing is for sure, it might not be the most beautiful, but this brain is pretty damn good. Like, this is
It's definitely the most beautiful.
This brain is the gift, right? Some people got nice shape and other,
oh my gosh, stop it. Look at this.
Whatever, some of you can sing.
Package.
I can't sing. Some of us
we'll
can
give you
cook.
No singing. I'll give you that one.
No singing. I mean, Filipino singing, yes. Karaoke,
oh, see,
yes.
Here we go. Just when I thought she could list one negative
yes,
thing.
Filipino singing, I'm a pass, and we'll do that next time.
Okay, cool.
Cooking, yes, I could cook, but
the brain,
the brain is the foundation, and the brain is a gift that needs to be given to the world. So I've been really thinking about ways to utilize this brain to the best of my potential. And business is hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to do business with people that look at you and are like, oh my God, her story, her job, her willingness to want to do what she does for this plant. Like, she's going to be my chief scientific officer.
Right.
And then I find myself helping people raise money for things that I don't want to do.
Right.
So
you're
that's
like, wait,
hard.
how did I just get stuck in this position?
That's hard.
So what is
right?
it? What do you want to do?
Well, the big ultimate mission and picture is, of course, to normalize not just cannabis, but compounds that are natural. You know, cannabis is obviously my favorite.
Right.
But there's the mushrooms. There's even from coca plant, we have amazing both alkaloids and non-alkaloids that are very healing.
Wow.
I just love nature.
You just like to pick the plants that are like,
I just
love
love nature.
around.
I'm the weird one that talks to the flowers, right? Like,
I love it.
I want to normalize that in traditional medicine.
Okay.
But it's bigger than that. It's not about the medicine itself, right? It's about the systems, right? So why was I, and this is what the true upstairs, downstairs effect is in my book in chapter 4.
Yes.
Why was I at Vanderbilt at the top floor doing groundbreaking research? Yes, on mice. Yes, in cells, zebrafish, and you name it.
Yeah.
But groundbreaking research, honestly.
Yeah.
Why was I up there for 7 years and didn't know the name of one treating oncologist or treating cardiologist right downstairs?
Like the
me?
frontline workers.
Like, I'd walk through the door,
Right.
every day, and I'd see cancer patients every day,
Right.
sitting there waiting for their treatments. Hundreds of different people.
Yeah.
And I just go right up to my lab and do groundbreaking research. How are we moving anything forward if we're not having conversations?
Right.
How do I not know what you're prescribing when it's people like me that approve these drugs and create these drugs
that you're going to have to use? Yeah.
Right. So that's the upstairs, downstairs effect. Like, where is that middle? Why aren't we talking? And that's ultimately my goal. And that's why it's been difficult to understand, like, what does that mean?
Right.
Does that mean you're making them hold hands? Does that mean, I've just kind of really a free bird. I've just kind of allowed myself to play a position in different governments, different countries that want to do different kind of clinical trials, using and accepting to plant compounds and normalizing them through clinical trials. I have to keep my day job in order to help advance this plant where we want to see it become normal and traditional. But it's about kind of bridging these different gaps. That's what I ultimately want to do, is have scientists talk to each other and to normalize the scientific conversation. Science is a whole nother language. And when you say we're nerds, we are nerds.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we wear the same shirt 3 days in a row. I don't. But you're just so dialed into your brain.
Right.
And there's so many smart people out there that can't translate their smart stuff into English. And so it never gets talked about.
Right.
And it never becomes something until 10 years of preclinical work, $2 billion, another 10 years, and then boom, oh, there's an EpiPen for heart disease. Why aren't we learning about this science as it is blooming? Right. And so normalizing science and having scientists talk to scientists and scientists talk to doctors and be a bigger part in that process is a lot more difficult than it sounds. And so how do I contribute to that? I have met some of the most incredible scientists. I'm so lucky. And it's been such a gift to introduce different scientists to each other and have them collaborate to then create magic quicker, right?
I think that's the
quicker
key, because you were explaining to me that it's like 10 years or something and $2 billion to bring something. But like way before those 10 years, like at the start of the 10 years, it's ready. It just has to go through this like insane process for safety, but it's ready.
It's for safety.
Yeah.
And so rightfully so.
Right.
Of course,
totally.
rightfully so. When we are using compounds to this magnitude that have toxicities, we need to do all of this due diligence. But in natural compounds, do we need to spend $10 million over the next 10 years in order for something to become maybe just a finished good that can help the symptoms of a cancer patient taking chemotherapies? But if we don't do that drug interaction study, we won't know if they could actually take that while going through chemotherapy.
So it's like
right?
bringing the science to the natural wellness. Wellness isn't the right word.
Wellness is not the right word.
It's not the right word. The natural products, like bringing that science there, because I'm sure, all the supplements on the shelf, someone goes and they say, can I take this? And those brands and those companies, myself included, I'm like, I can't answer that.
Right.
I mean,
you want to answer that. And that should be what becomes the new normal.
Okay.
Right. Like we need to bridge that. Right.
Yeah.
So like if I tell you go take turmeric and you go to Whole Foods or a wellness store and you go and look in the shelf, there's probably 30, 40 brands of turmeric.
Right.
Should I take capsule? Should I take a dropper? Should I do the powder form and make it in a drink in my smoothies? What is the efficacy there?
How do I measure
and
the
how
potency?
much am I supposed to take, right?
That's the biggest.
That natural space, because again, we have a lot of fillers going on. We're finding a lot of products that don't have what they say they have in them.
Right.
So we need science and regulation there. We do.
Yep.
Because it's not fair. It's not fair to spend $40 on a product that you're just giving yourself gelatin capsules and rice filler.
Yeah.
Come on, that's not fair. That we're tripping if we're doing that to people. And what's not fair
is you have one company who's doing it. They have the integrity. And then you have the other one who's not.
Who's winning because of branding.
And pricing, because they can compete.
And the new brands should be scientific. The new brands should be brands that are investing in and putting towards the science. And because you're giving something to people to put in their mouths.
Yeah.
You're giving something to someone that is functional. Right. So you should have that care that long term, that's not going to turn into a cyst on the person's whatever.
Right.
Right. And so, again, bridging that gap. Okay. How do we make that natural space more scientifically justified? And how do we make our current scientific medical space more outside the box, more integrative, more accepting towards a product that does do the due diligence, the product that is willing to go through preclinicals. And so my team came up with a group called Inexa Labs, where we're literally taking natural compounds through the preclinical process and getting you clinical trial ready, right? You can't refuse me. If you're anti-mushroom, if you're anti-cannabis, hello, 99% of our pharmaceuticals, these compounds come from plants. They might be synthesized. They might be synthesized, to scale. But at the end of the day, this comes from nature, right? And so let's not be blinded to that. And so, okay, you guys need to see all this work in order for me to justify this natural product being good for, let's say, Crohn's disease. Okay. Then we'll take it through that process at a lot cheaper price and a lot faster, and just get rid of all that fluff and still have that FDA conversation where we are doing things right. Amazing. We're still doing the in vitro, which is the cellular work, and the in vivo work where we're looking at animals and doing everything, checking all the boxes. Right. And so we've created a company called Inexa Labs where, hey, Devin, you've got this incredible product that you know is good for sleep, but you want to know if there's drug interactions. Right. You want to know what the perfect dose is for a kid versus an adult. Yeah. We can't just throw up our hands and say, oh, it's safe. Right. Because every person is different. And so if I'm on a heart pill and I say, hey, I love your product, do you think it's safe for me to take? And you just assume it's safe because it's natural? Yeah. It's not the way to do things anymore. It's not right.
You can really hurt someone.
So the best companies, I feel like 2024, 2025, as we move into more acceptance of different plant compounds and different natural products and people are being more preventative, the best companies are focused on the science. The best companies are showing care that science matters when it comes to quality and when it comes to safety in people's lives.
Profound. Okay, so bringing the science behind a product. You have a product out on the market.
I do.
I feel like before I even go there, a whole conversation for another day is Annabelle is helping me through a wild health journey that I'm on right now. So I'm on a lot of your products.
Yes, customized.
Customized for me and my awesome Lyme's disease, which really is just an immune system that is just raging at me right now. So you have Messiah.
Yep.
And so that's a scientifically formulated, you said you're not a formulator, but she is, product that is clean, high dose CBD, full spectrum.
Isolated.
Yep.
Messiah is the product that I made for Macario. And the goal in science is to know exactly what you're giving somebody.
Okay.
Especially when you're trying to avoid drug interactions. When it comes to healing, you have to know exactly what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, you don't know what's causing it.
Right. There's a variable.
So the goal with him, even though I am a big fan of the spectrums, was to keep him on isolate first.
Okay.
It worked the first time.
Right.
Another goal was to ensure that the delivery was going to truly cross the blood-brain barrier. It was going to be as effective as possible. So how do I cross the blood-brain barrier? How do I avoid drug interactions of these 7 drugs that he was on? Mm-hmm. How do I ensure that the dose is enough for him to be able to actually get something off of it? And GW Pharmaceuticals research was out at that time, and I looked at their animal studies and their cellular studies, which was weight-based, with him being a baby. So I did choose a 3,000 milligram per 1 ounce dropper for Macario and was giving it to him. So Messiah is a pure product. Cool. And I chose a base that also took away a lot of what I like to call the fat noise.
Okay.
So MCT is a bunch of triglycerides, which triglycerides are fat.
Yep.
And I just believed that if I embedded the CBD in all that fat, when you start digesting and when you start going through, you have too much noise.
Okay.
Right? And so I chose a single chain triglyceride out of all those MCTs. So filter from coconut oil, LCT, MCT oil, and then filter again.
Okay.
And I chose C8.
Okay.
Which is one of the triglycerides.
Right,
It's
but
chain
just
8,
singular.
But it's singular. And so I just felt like it would be smoother, faster, and we're still working to define that, but it definitely worked.
Oh, yeah.
And it's simple enough. And so I've brought that product through a full preclinical package. Yep. So I did dose toxicity studies, I did cellular studies, I did drug interaction, everything that you would need if you had a drug that you were taking to clinical trial.
Right.
And the goal with it was always to take it through clinical trials, which it's starting clinical trials. However, why am I waiting to make it available to people?
Right.
Because the people that have had access to it have moved mountains as far as their healing, whether it's autism, whether it's inflammation, whether it's pain, an athlete or arthritic pain. Right. I mean, people have really been able to find, themselves and find balance.
Well, when you remove
on
pain,
Messiah.
When you remove pain from people's lives, like something really profound happens. Which is, I think, I see it with the people that take our products is like they always, come back like, wow, I'm just not in as much pain.
Right. And you can be more conscious when you're not in pain. You can navigate your own self, right? And so there again is that like connection of the brain to just be able to operate. Yeah. When it can operate properly, everything else can signal. You don't have that noise. You don't have that distraction. Yeah. And so Messiah allows for that. A lot of people take it and they're like, okay, well, what exactly does it do?
Yeah,
Well, it targets the endocannabinoid system.
Right. And you don't necessarily feel it right away. That's something hard to explain to people.
And don't call me, take a dropper, like this sweet old lady did one time. Oh. And she FaceTimed me, and it was like her first time FaceTiming because she was trying to figure it out. I just love old people. And she props her phone up, and she said, okay, Dr. Annabelle, I just took my first dose. And she's sitting there waiting to get high. Well, it doesn't do that.
Yeah, it doesn't
Unfortunately,
do that.
there are ways to feel good, but Messiah doesn't do that. It really taps in to the endocannabinoid system. And it's funny, like you could be taking it for a headache.
Right.
And your acid reflux goes away.
Right.
And so there are things inside of us to fix that we don't know need to be fixed.
Well, and sometimes you just like go through life and you don't even realize something's wrong.
That's right. That's right. So working towards still hopefully getting Messiah CBD in through clinical trials and in the conversation of being a prescription drug. And really it's not for it to, because I want it to be a pharmaceutical product. Right. I want insurance to pay for it.
Yeah.
For people.
Right.
Right. And I want doctors to accept it. And unfortunately we still live in a time where unless it's FDA approved, a doctor really doesn't feel comfortable prescribing it. And so that's why Messiah is going through that. But for those of us that are willing and open to natural methods, why isn't this product on the shelf? And so working towards actually with you to get it out there, whether it's through, your wellness stores, pharmaceutically, I'm going to have it available. And so that's going to be a big deal this first quarter of this year.
Yeah, we're excited to represent it in our best ability.
Good.
Hopefully.
Well, Messiah means happy.
Yeah,
and so hopefully bring that happy energy into getting it to people.
The second, so we get 2 questions. Well, it's really 3. It's consistent, right? Hundreds of people always asking the same thing. Is like, one is, am I going to pass a drug test? So that's like one. Second one would probably be like, I need sleep. People's recurring issue is pain and sleep. I would say sleep is over pain because of they're in pain, they can't sleep. Third biggest question right under that is, what can I give my kids?
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Well, so you're asking me that?
Yeah, I'm asking you that. I mean, you've got this thing.
I think I told you that too when we spoke last, is that's got to be the number one question for me too. Of course, everybody has their issues. Everybody knows someone that's sick. Everybody has something that they need to get better. So of course I become the guru of these. And I help people as much as I can, but probably the most common is, okay, you've got all these kids. What do you give your kids? What do your kids take every morning? And I went home one day and I opened up my medicine cabinet, and you got your regular stuff, right? Like it's up there, right? But when I looked at what I give my kids every day, it's literally tinctures I've made myself. It's capsules I've made myself, and nothing but that. And my kids have never got COVID. I think they're developing quite well. My kids don't get sick. My younger ones are not vaccinated. That's a question for another day, a whole nother episode. Please. Can we talk about that later?
To have that conversation, but not today.
But you open up my cabinets, and it's everything that I've made. And so if I can give to other families, how do I make these same products with these same ingredients as far as ensuring protection, antiviral, anti-infection, antibacteria? How do we kind of tap into our body so that we're protecting as best as we can, develop neurological balance? So whether or not you've been diagnosed on the spectrum, or maybe you're a cerebral palsy kid and you're just developing a little bit different, how do we bring a balance there? And this is beyond cannabinoids. Right. Cannabinoids are involved, but there are, again, other compounds. I wanted to make it all natural. For my kids, it's all natural. So it's not necessarily medicine, but it's scientifically tailored enough to be medicine. The knowledge around it. There. Yeah, the knowledge behind it is medical, so that I know if you do email and say, hey, when my kid's taking your multivitamin, what else can I give them? Is this okay with it? And most of the times I'll say yes, because safety is number one. And especially if you're giving something to somebody every single day. So those are the things that I focus on mostly is, neurological balance, which is, kids have different moods, right? They grow up differently. We all develop differently. And I think we are too quick in society today to put a stamp on someone and call them autistic, or say, hey, you have ADHD, take Adderall for the rest of your life. Right. That's got to change. I mean, really, kids are just developing differently. Yeah. And so, sure, like some kids may need a little more supplementation than others, but let's start safely. Right. Let's see what the brain can do. Let's enable the brain to rewire and adapt to changes on its own. Let's see what our body can do if we give it and supplement it things the right way. Yeah. Support is the word. So I am inventing this idea in my head, and a friend of mine came to me and said, well, what's wrong with the gummies? Yeah. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm thinking about this because, I do tinctures with my kids, but why reinvent that gummies wheel? And so that's when I started talking to you and having this ongoing conversation with you about doing this with you, because of course with me, gummies, I don't want all this sugar, right? That's a big thing. Like delivery, right? It's a great delivery, Like it's kind of the perfect balance between sublingual and edible.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because you're saliving it up.
Right.
Saliva-ing it up.
You're slurping on it.
You're slurping it. And of course, different people are going to do different things
Yeah.
with it as far as it being a gummy, and kids especially love gummies. And so how do we create these same formulations that are quite active?
Right.
These will be active formulations. And how do we put them in something that is easy day to day? Hey, if we're traveling as a family, maybe I could just put a few in a Ziploc bag.
Right.
Right. I think coming out with my own gummies that I would call Mighty Flower would actually be a nice way to share with the world what I give to my kids.
Yeah.
And so that's in the works right now. It won't take long. Nothing takes long with me.
Yeah. I think that's what I admire most. It's like idea, boom, to market. Because
It won't take long.
Not because you're rushing the process, because you've had your whole career to lead you to this point where you
thought about it. Yeah, I've thought about it a ton. I actually have friends like you that are come to me and are like, hey, I'm having this issue. Is there a way to combat this naturally? Or is there a way to combat this naturally with my pharmaceutical?
Right.
And I can help answer that. And I can help provide for that.
Right.
And so how do I do it on a larger scale for people that can't call me or that maybe I miss your emails. I'm so sorry. I miss her emails sometimes, but maybe you're missing my communication with me because I am a human being.
Yeah. It's like, how to give access to the brain.
How can I make this accessible to all? And I always am thinking about like, how do I make big change? So I'm always thinking about those government conversations and those UN talks. And I'm always thinking that big, but the truth is that, you know, my people every day are like, well, hey, how do I take advantage of Dr. Annabelle today? Now I've read your book.
Right.
Like, what do you give your kids?
Yeah.
What do you take? Right.
Yeah.
So it's this whole thing that I like to call my funner and my softer side, where, you know, I think medicine should be more intentional. I think we should start by being preventative. I think we should take advantage of the natural goods and the processes and the systems that have created for and allowed for us to be able to heal from a gummy.
Right.
Or be able to go to sleep from a gummy.
Yeah.
Like these processes weren't easy to put together.
Right.
Like you've told me about your formulation journey and being able to trust your manufacturer. And so now that those kind of things are in place, why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
You know, why wouldn't we? And so, yes, in order for me to make something available to other kids that maybe aren't, you know, direct medicines.
Right.
I want to come out with Mighty Flower supplements for kids. I want to focus on neurological health, neurological balance, protection from all this gooey stuff that's out there.
Right.
Instead of recommending, go vaccinate this, go do that, you know, hey, like, you know, take this tincture, take this gummy. This is what I do on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's just another way of me being able to give to the world.
I can't wait for it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, you're going to have to get to work pretty soon.
We got some big work.
Are you sure?
It's important work.
You're a busy mom, too.
I'm dedicated to it.
You're a busy mom, too.
I consider myself a steward of the plant, too. It's an honor to be a steward next to you in a different capacity. So it would be an honor to help you share.
It'd be an honor for me, too, because it is so important that no matter what your journey is, no journey is bigger than any others.
Right.
Right? Like, you could say, oh, my God, she did this, but a lot of it has to do with, like, what have you done?
Right.
It's not size that matters.
Yeah.
It's not quantity that matters. It's the quality of it.
And the
so
intention.
What have you had to navigate through? What have you had to do, and how did you do it? And what kind of courage did you have?
Yeah.
You know, what kind of access did you use?
Right.
And it's really important that we appreciate that in others. And I appreciate that in you. And I want to be a part of your journey because I've seen you grow.
Cool.
And I've seen you grow in the right way, which really is so honorable in this industry because I've seen a lot of not so good things in this industry. A lot of people, you know, maybe holding the industry back because they care more about the possibility of all these sales while CBD was trending, opposed to the quality and opposed to really caring about like, hey, this guy might give this to his kid. For energy for his basketball game.
Right. Efficacy, quality.
Now this kid is sick or this kid feels nothing because you put nothing in it.
It's
you
just
know?
a gummy.
So you've shown me that like you've navigated to make sure that, okay, I have a good place to do this. I'm working with the right people.
Right.
I can fund that, and I'm going to scale this way. And, you know, your team is awesome. Shout out to the Cannabis Supply team for just, you know, I've seen your ups and I've seen some of your downs, but to me, it always looks like up because you're doing it gracefully and you're doing it right. And it matters.
Thank you.
And that matters in this industry because you are also bearers of this plant.
Right.
Because a bad experience could be somebody's first experience and that could be its last.
Yeah.
And so if we're not presenting ourselves appropriately and holding each other's hand, then you may as well go over there.
Yeah.
Because that's not right. That's not fair.
Yeah. So we got to protect the plant.
Gotta protect the plant.
Thank you so much. Something tells me you're going to be back for more conversations.
Sure, of course. Always. I'm very talkative, but you know, any way that we could get the right message out, we should.
Yeah, we should be talking about more. I think
we should have these conversations.
Part of bridging the gap is just to talk about it more and get it out there.
That's right.
So, Mighty Flower, I want to give one of these books away. So, for anyone listening,
I might sign it.
It's going to be
you don't
signed.
have a long name.
We will first, let's see, what do we want the giveaway to be? First person to comment on the post when this episode goes live.
I will sign it.
We will send it to you. And I think everyone should read it. It's an amazing book, Mighty Flower. It's available on, I'm going to have to get you a freshie to sign because you signed that one for me already.
Yeah.
It's available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon. There's also an audiobook that I recorded myself.
Oh, amazing.
That was hard.
Yeah.
But it's done.
Okay, there you go.
So I appreciate it if you listened, if you are a listener. Some people are into that these days.
Okay, so Audible through Amazon. Messiah, is that web, we can get that product now?
That is going up, I think, what is it? By the end of this month. That'll be going up. And so just stay tuned. You know, everything Dr. Annabelle, and you'll be able to, we'll definitely make some noise when Messiah is ready.
Yeah, so give Dr. Annabelle a follow on the socials, and that's how you'll know about some of her products coming out. And thank you again for having the conversation.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
Yay.